So we're back at it again today. Last night when the camera shut off, I had a look at this engine just quickly without breaking anything down, and because you can see it through the exhaust ports and through the reeds, you can see the cylinders. So the cylinders look scored, and one piston definitely is scored. You can actually catch it with your nail, so she's pretty rough in there. I think that may have been because I discovered after I bought the sled and I was having some cooling issues. The previous owner message being said it did overheat on him one time on his last ride. I think that's what he said. So if it had gotten hot because there's no coolant to it because we had that leak, it could have scorched the cylinders a little bit, probably overheated the pistons and smeared some aluminum on the Nicosil. So let's take it apart and have a look and confirm what we're thinking here, and make a decision from there. Oh, that one was loose. That one was loose. Right. Ooh, we had a head gasket failure, absolutely. Which I should have mentioned in the video. I did think I had a head gasket failure because the coolant issue was mainly that leak in the cooler. It did seem to be consuming some coolant as I was running, and it would make little bubbles in the coolant reservoir and stuff. You could see the level of change when you revved it, and I wasn't sure how much of that is normal, how much of it wasn't. And clearly it wasn't normal. It sucks that I can't spin the engine because the crank is locked up. So I'll give you guys a closer look here. You can see the head gasket's compromised on this angle. I hope you guys can see that. I think the GoPro is focusing. But it's blown away. You can see it's eaten away on this part of the gasket here. There's actually some rubber, and you can see that, yeah. You can see where the gas has been passing through. You can see we got some scoring, and you can actually feel that with your finger. Not as bad as I was thinking. You know, I would have used that before on some other dirt bikes, so I got to decide now if I want to do it dirty and reuse that because it could be reusable. I'm sure it would last a long time like that. Because aluminum cylinders like these on dirt bikes don't have sleeves. They got a Nicosil coating on them. That coating is super thin, and you can chip it and you can damage it pretty easily, and you can wipe it away with the pistons, obviously. So once it gets down to that coating, it's kind of trashed, you know. And there's nowhere locally here, because I live in a small part of Canada, there's nowhere here that's going to recoat that, you know, and have a decent cost. You can get another one of those cylinders used for nothing, or new probably for the same cost, right, by the time you ship it and do all that. I've never actually looked into the cost of replating the Nicosil cylinders. It's always been not worth it, is what I've been told. You know, some of the numbers you see online. So let's get the cylinders off, have a look at the other side, and you know, look at the dollars and cents and see what's up. Get Flat. Cool. It's interesting to me that Bombardier went with this split cylinder design. I think in later years they went to all one piece, like a normal engine of any, you know, from anything else. But the head is still one piece, and obviously, you know, this is one here too. And it uses one gasket for the base between the whole thing. It's just such a, you know, odd engine to take apart. Something I haven't seen before. So here are the pistons. I think you guys can see them. We don't even need a light for that. You can already see that they're scored up, not looking too hot. And the crank bearings for the rods feel fine. No play into them. Nothing abnormal. So having a look at these cylinders here, This is the mag side, this one is, and that one over there is the PTO side. So you can see, get my GoPro going, there's a couple little marks there. They actually don't feel too bad to your finger. If I spin it around, a few marks on the intake side. Also, those aren't too bad. They look pretty bad, and obviously they're not perfect, but not too bad when you feel them with your fingers. And now looking at the PTO side here, the scoring is actually worse on this cylinder, which I didn't think it was going to be because the piston looks a little bit better. But the scoring is actually worse all the way down to the bottom. But not the end of the world. Not you can feel it with your finger, but it's not deep into the cylinder, you know. So I'm thinking, off the top of my head right now, maybe we'll keep this engine going. Maybe. We don't want to buy a used engine because you don't know the condition of it. It could be in this condition or worse. And then you spend $700 on an engine for cases, right? Which is basically what I have here now. So we could put an engine together with a fresh crank, fresh remanufactured crank, and some nice pistons. And worst case is a cylinder down the road, right? And the problem is, apparently the RS cylinders are ported different, so you can't just get a 600 HO cylinder and put it onto it. I mean, you can, right? You can, but then it's not. This doesn't have the RS porting, which I'd like to have. It's the race sled is what makes me excited, and I've come to love and enjoy like reading about the, you know, a bit of the history of the race sled. Not history, but you know, kind of the changes and differences from other sleds. It's just cool to me, right? And I got the sled here. I don't really want to just put a trail motor into it. That's not that cool, you know, to me. Anyways. All right, now let's split the case, have a look at the bottom end, see if there's anything interesting in there. Although I don't think there's going to be. Maybe another bearing's trash. That'd be pretty cool. So let's have a look. I'm only doing trash anyways. It's not my first time having a wrist thing. Play that. Not my first time. Wow. Cool. This bearing, this rod looks okay though. Looks more fine. Let's pour piston. Alright. Let's go inside. Oh, we got it. Things all probably dirty here. Ouch. All right. This red piece flings out and catches one of these notches on this cup. That's cool. Yeah, we've got one big nut on the end of the crank, and then 3 Allen keys here around it. Looks like these 3 Allen keys are just for this little cup, so we can, that's for the recoil. This is what the recoil catches on. So I think maybe we just take out this inner nut. Maybe this will slide. I'm not sure if this is keyed. I hope it's not a press fit, because I don't think it is though, but I hope it's not a press fit, because that would really suck. Look at that, it's a 30 mil socket. I did some research, and of course that shaft is tapered on the crankshaft, so that's got to be pulled off with a puller. And obviously there's a puller that's made for that. It all bolts up nice and pulls on the flywheel and pushes against the crankshaft. It comes off nice. But I'm gonna make up something here, so I got some bolts that fits in where that the recoil catches the flywheel. So I got some extra bolts that are a bit longer. I'm gonna put them in, and I'm gonna weld a nut onto them like that, more like that, I guess. And I can put the little jaws of the puller. You can see them here. I got the jaws of the puller. I'm gonna put them through the nut. So the bolts will be like that, right? 2 of them like that, and then push against it on the crank. And hopefully it's more than enough to take that off. I don't imagine that's on crank tight, although it's a tapered shaft, so you never know. But we'll hope that it's on not too bad. Should try to force out. All right. It's on there fine. He's in here close enough. Beauty. And we got a bolt welded onto a nut. This puller's a little bit bent, so it's not going to be that pretty. But that's okay. Can you tell it's bent? Oh man. We're going to assemble this all back together now with new parts, and this thing is going to fly apart full throttle on the side of a hill. Can you imagine that? So it looks like this stays in here until the case splits, because the case splits. Obviously these wires go from the stator here through the hole and out, so when it splits that hole will open up and you can take it out, because if not you'd have to do some weird stuff with this connector. Now I believe the water pump might have to come out next, or definitely this plate's got to come off. There's this plate here and the water pump goes through. It's a big long shaft and there's an impeller. The impeller is over here. And on the shaft there's a gear, so there's a gear that's geared to the crankshaft, and the shaft for the water pump actually goes through the whole engine. You can see a little cover right there. So I'm going to pop 2 of those covers off and have a look and see if that's got to come out first. If there's a nut on the other side and it's going to all slide out, have a look at it, and then we're going to split the case. Yep. There we go. Oh. Cool. Just a little block off plate, nothing there. Look at that, full of oil. Right. Go size. No, sir. Okay, look. Keep it all being cables. There are smart. Oh, yeah, there. There. There's 2 bolts right here, and it looks like they're just kind of helping to seal this water pump area. This motor mount here is going to have to come off, of course, because it's over both, and this one. But the ones on the back are fine. They're all on the top of the case. Wow, it's split already. There we go. So here's our PTO side. This is our bearing that we did some welding on. You can see that there's a pin here, right? And that's why it wouldn't come out of the case. It's pinned to the case. This bearing actually slips off the shaft just easy like that. Cool, hey? Looks like this bearing's been spinning at some times, maybe, possibly spinning. Oh wow, it's cracked. Wow, guys, the inner race is cracked. Can you see that? On this side here, the race is cracked. Wow. So obviously that could have been from us heating it and welding onto it, because it is kind of within the area where the weld is. So it definitely could have, it looks like, yeah, it definitely could have cracked it from doing, when I was doing that foolishness. Wow, I didn't expect that. And so here is our inner seal, which looks pretty trash. I don't imagine all of this grease should be in here. This seal sits like that and seals all of that isoflex grease from that bearing from going into the crankcase. This seal is really important, because this is, if this seal is gone, you'll have air leaks in your engine. Obviously air leaks in an engine will cause it to run all kinds of weird ways. It'll cause it to run lean and stuff, because it's sucking in air from different places. You can hear the noise, hey? You hear the bearing noise? Because of course, with that bearing being trashed, this one was taking a lot of extra load. Plus all this weirdness going on with the seals. You don't know what kind of lubrication this was getting, because maybe it was blowing all the oil from the gas in here was blowing out past, and this wasn't getting proper lubrication, you know. There's a million reasons why this is like it is. Inside the cases here, I first pulled it off and I was like, oh crap. I thought, like, it looks as if the bearing was spinning, you know, you can see those little marks. But of course the bearing wasn't spinning, because there's these little pins here. You can see where the pins would have been, right here. The bearings have pins, you can see them there, and they fit into those grooves. So the bearings can't spin, of course, right? Which is nice, because if they were spinning somehow, the cases would have been trashed. But the cases all look fine. This center section where the water pump gear kind of lives is all filled with oil. That's why so much oil came out. The oil comes in through the top half of the case, this part here, through that little nipple, and all of this, I would imagine, is filled with oil. So this whole cavern here, and that's why there's these two center seals here to seal from the oil. That's just kind of cool. Interesting system to see how it all works. And you see people online talking about the mag side bearing needing isoflex grease. I'm not really sure what they mean. I think maybe they're talking about a different engine style, because of course these two bearings here have no seal on the crank, right? There's no seal sealing these bearings from the crankcase, right? And the seal to the outside is this guy here, right? So there's no way to get isoflex grease into those bearings. So those bearings actually don't require it. Which, from reading online, people would say sometimes they would grease the mag side every now and then, which was odd, because people would say, kind of don't worry about the mag side. The PTO side was always what you'd see being greased. And that's because that's the only bearing in this thing here that needs that grease. It's interesting that they would go with that design. Why wouldn't they do a similar idea? On this side, I don't know, just some ramblings, just looking at the whole thing. Everything looks pretty good though, besides obviously the crank, which we knew was trashed, which is nice. So I'm going to do a quick little decision and decide what we're going to do with all this. Okay, a couple closing thoughts. The sled, to start, comes apart super easy. And speaking to what we found out on our job, so the cylinders are okay. I think I'm going to run them. I think I'm going to be foolish and run them, which means I need pistons, I need a crank. I probably easily could slip two bearings on that crank and a seal on the PTO side and run that crank. That crank is actually not that bad, right? I got checked to run it. I didn't do that, but I'll probably check that off camera. Maybe I'll put up a little graphic here of the run out, because I'm going to do that now. But it's been a cool engine to work on. It's been a really fun project. This is the most fun I've had working on something in a while. You're going to see me again assemble it when I get all the parts together, so I guess that's probably the next time we'll speak. But for now, thanks for watching. As always, I really appreciate it, and hope to see you again with some better news.